Hello friends and welcome to Summerween. Summerween is one of my favorite readathons that happens every single year in the summertime, hosted by Gabi Reads, and it's just a really fun way to bring the Halloween spirit to summertime. So this week I'll be trying to stick to my Summerween TBR and reading a few horror and thriller books. I will be starting with You Know What You Did for the Literally Dead Book Club, and I have quite a few thoughts on that one. Hello friends, happy Summerweenie! I'm actually off today, which is really cool, but what's not cool is I have a lot of prep to do for my story time tomorrow. I have to finish cutting out all of the crafts for it. I need to actually practice it. Normally every Friday night I practice. I practice my story time with Jared and the cats and just see their reaction. In reality, I'm just making sure that I know all of the words in the book and don't get tripped up. And secondly, that it is only like 15 to 20 minutes because we have a craft that we have to do. Obviously, that's why I'm prepping for the craft. And the craft should be anywhere from 10 to 15 minutes for them to get it done because I only have 30 minutes total. It's a mess. So anyway, today was gonna be like my cleaning and rotting day, but I really need to get this prep done. So I've popped in a headphone. I am determined to finish You Know What You Did today because I've been reading it for too long. I've been reading it for far too long. It's only like 380 pages, and for some reason it's just been taking me a really long time to get through this book. And I won't lie, buds, it's not a favorite. But again, thrillers are so hit or miss for me. I've said this before. I was talking about it in my Summerween TBR. As much as I try to go into a thriller head empty, no thoughts, I just can't do it. Like I can't shut off my brain and I end up trying to figure it out. And a lot of times I ruin books for myself. I do this with movies too, movies and television. It's so annoying. I think that's why I like a mystery more than a thriller, because I feel like the mystery, it's setting it up to where you're supposed to kind of figure it out, but maybe there's like a little plot twist at the end that shocks you and it's fun. I don't know why I like mysteries so much more than thrillers, but this is good. Like, it's not horrible. I definitely think I'll land on a 3 stars, which is pretty much my average for thrillers. So I'm really excited to talk about this one because I think there's a lot to be said here, and I think there was a lot being set up, which I'm not done yet, so maybe it does get resolved. But I think there's a lot being set up here that can't possibly all be resolved in the amount of time I have left in the audiobook. So I'm interested to see what does get tied up and what doesn't. I have about an hour left in the audiobook. I think my prep is probably going to take longer, so I'm going to start The Middle of the Night by Riley Sager as well. And I'm also nervous for that one because I've been seeing such mixed reviews. But anyway, that's when I'm starting. I have not been able to update all day because we literally have construction happening on both sides of us. There's something going on with the house next to us, and then the house on the other side of us, they're remodeling it. So actually, while I was prepping for my story time, I did finish You Know What You Did, and I think that I'm settling on a 3 stars. I didn't really love the ending. I didn't love the twist of it all, and I think there could have been more nuance in this book overall. So you're following our main character, Annie, and at the beginning of the story, Annie's
Annie's mother has just passed away. And the way that this opens, it's almost as if Annie was responsible for her mother's death, but we quickly learn that Annie has clinical OCD, and her OCD manifests in more of like a medical and cleanliness type of OCD. I also have OCD. The thing that we relate on in this book is the thought spiral. So I thought it was really interesting to have a main character who has OCD. I obviously can't speak to all types of OCD because OCD manifests in very different ways. But in terms of the thought spirals and the way that you can't get out of a thought spiral, that was extremely relatable, and at times it actually gave me a little bit of anxiety. So when the book opens, we're not really sure if Annie is responsible for the death of her mother or not. As we get further into the book, we find out that Annie is a painter. She is married to a man named Duncan, and they have a daughter named Tabitha. And at this point, like, it seems their relationships are all decent, but Annie is starting to notice a shift in her relationship with her daughter, especially as her daughter is becoming a teenager, and there are some things with her husband that feel a little bit off. This is exacerbated when her mother passes away, because it seems like in the past, Annie has had a really bad flare-up with her OCD that caused like a rift within her relationships. So a huge thing in this book is using OCD as a way to make Annie very unreliable. I just personally don't really like it. I think the one thing that's really interesting though is when you do have the mental health aspect to it, a lot of the surrounding characters are the most unsupportive when it comes to mental health. The characters surrounding Annie were like so unsupportive. So in the midst of this OCD flare-up, Annie has interactions with people that she can't really remember that well. There will be instances where she has interactions with people and has absolutely no recollection of those interactions. Her mentor slash a person who commissions her a lot for artwork ends up going missing, and they believe Annie is potentially complicit in this person going missing because her mother had just recently passed away. Then this mentor, who's also older, goes missing, and it happened to coincide with a recent interaction that Annie had had with her mentor. But because Annie is so unreliable, we obviously as the reader don't know what's going on. To make things more confusing, there are 3 timelines in here. So there's the current timeline, which is Annie dealing with her flare-up, dealing with this murder investigation, the death of her mother. And then we have an early timeline where Annie and her mother have immigrated to America and kind of discussing the immigrant experience and the way that this has shaped her life and shaped her as a person. And then we have a third timeline where Annie and Duncan, who is Annie's husband, they are at the beginning of their relationship. So we also get that timeline. And I think that overall, the timeline aspect of it all was not done well, and I think it made things very confusing because we would flash between the timelines so quickly that sometimes I didn't even know we flashed to another timeline. Secondly, I think that the early timeline that is explaining Annie and her mother's relationship and also having a discussion about intergenerational trauma, I don't think it was like nuanced enough or even utilized that well in the end of this book. Like the outcome and the twists and the turns at the end of this book, I feel like these timelines weren't used super well. And by the end of the book, I was kind of questioning why we even had the timelines. And then, yeah, like I said, I think the overall outcome of this book, the twists and the turns and the overall reveal just didn't work for me. And I think it also lacked a lot of nuance, and it lacked a lot of like tying up the loose ends. It left me with more questions than not, and it also left me wondering why the book is written the way that it is. And I'm ultimately really disappointed because I thought that this had a lot of promise. I was very invested in the beginning, and there's some horror imagery that's in here that really got me and I thought was like so well done. So to me, I feel like I would read another book by this author, but I would hope that maybe she leans more horror, because I felt like the horrific elements of this book were done so well. There was a lot of like imagery in here that got me, and I also think like the thought spirals and the anxiety that Annie was going through was really palpable, and I felt it. It was giving me anxiety. So I felt like there were a lot of really great elements. It just didn't come together well, and it was a little bit messy. It was messy. But like I said, I would definitely try to read something from this author again. This was their debut novel, so who knows. I'm curious what everyone thinks about this book, so I'm excited for the live show. But I also had the chance to start Middle of the Night by Riley Sager, and I'm like 25% in at this point. Middle of the Night is fine so far. I feel like the setup was a little slow, and finally at 20% we got a little bit of intrigue and it made me more interested in it. But basically our main character Ethan in like the 90s was camping camping with his best friend in his backyard, and when he woke up there was a slit in the tent and his best friend was missing. And 30 years later his best friend was still missing. A body was never found, but obviously they kind of just declared him dead. And Ethan has a lot of anxiety and insomnia, and he still thinks about that night every single night because he doesn't know how he slept through it. So the beginning of the book opens with the scenario of him waking up and seeing that his best friend is missing, and then it takes us between two timelines. So it takes us between the timeline in the 90s and the aftermath of his best friend going missing, and then 30 years later him in his 40s still thinking about that night and still kind of investigating things. He's moved back to his parents' home at this point, and his anxiety has skyrocketed because obviously this is the place where his best friend went missing and he doesn't know what happened. So I'm interested to see where it goes from here. I've heard that this isn't the most exciting. A lot of people have DNF'd it or they talk about it being really, really boring and hard to care about what's happening in this book. But I feel like I always kind of struggle with the first 10% of a thriller book. It's usually a lot of setup and establishing characters and establishing like the drama. So I'm hoping that I really like this one as much as I like the last one. Hi, I'm in the worst lighting. It's Saturday. I have been at work all day. So as you saw yesterday, I was prepping for my story time. My story time happens today and it was pretty successful, although it's been super hot. We have story time outside, and by the time I'm done with story time, it's like 11:30. I'm tapped for the day. I'm sweaty, I feel disgusting, and I'm tapped for the day. And I'm like, how do I go on for another 6 hours? Yeah, 6 hours. That being said, when I left the house this morning, I only had like 2 hours of middle of the night left, and I ended up finishing it on my lunch break, which is very rare for me. I don't know what it is, but I cannot read while I'm eating. I have to like watch a video or something. So reading on my lunch breaks doesn't happen even though I really want it to. But I did on this lunch break. I read, and I honestly don't have much to say about it except that I didn't enjoy this one. Riley got me. He got me. He really got me. Learned his name was Todd. Todd really bamboozled me this time. Here's the thing. I don't even think I'm gonna rate it. Like, my mind wanted to be like, oh, this is a 2 stars, but I actually don't genuinely feel like it's a 2 star. Like, I could settle on a 3 star. I don't know. I didn't viscerally hate this. It's not like my experience with House Across the Lake, which I hated with the passion of 1,000 suns. But this one, I actually don't have strong feelings either way. Like, I think there was some really solid aspects to this book, but overall, I really don't have many feelings on it because I was bored. I was bored the majority of this book. My initial reaction was that 60% of this book could have been cut out or changed, and it probably wouldn't have made a difference to the end. Yeah, I'm genuinely head empty, no thoughts with this one because of how little I felt about it. I had very little feelings about it. It was a book that I read, but you know what I did start and I'm enjoying is I'm a Teenage Slasher, or I Was a Teenage Slasher by Stephen Graham Jones. And the thing about Stephen Graham Jones for me is that I will immediately know in the first chapter if I'm gonna vibe with one of his books or not. I just can tell by the writing and like the character if I'm gonna vibe. Every single time I immediately know by the first chapter. And let me tell you, this book, I am vibing. I am vibing. I really, really like it so far. I don't even know how far I am. I think I forgot my phone in the other room, but I'm pretty sure I'm only like 10%, if that, into the book. Our main character is reflecting on high school and this murder spree that he went on. And he's kind of leading up to what made him do it. So that's what I'll be reading probably for the rest of the night. If I read anything for the rest of the night, I'm pretty tired and I'm about to make dinner and watch the last episode of The Fall of House Usher, which I'm very excited that Jared and I are finally gonna be finishing this show because it's been a long time coming. We actually started it right when it came out, I believe, and we were actually really enjoying it, but Jared and I have a very bad habit of getting halfway or more into a show and then starting something else. So we only had 3 episodes left, so we've been watching the last couple of days, and tonight we are finally finishing it, and I'm so curious how it's gonna end. I'm so curious because there's still so many unanswered questions. It is almost time for the Literally Dead Book Club live. I always get so nervous about being on live shows on other people's channels, but I'm excited because my friend Jenny is going to be joining as well. So that's exciting, and I'm looking forward to talking about the book with both Kayla and Jenny. I'm really interested to see what Kayla specifically thinks of it, because Jenny and I have talked about it in the Discord, but I genuinely have no idea how Kayla felt about it. I forgot to mention that when I was at work yesterday, I was perusing the graphic novel section because I really love YA graphic novels, but I never want to buy them. So I found a few, but the one that I started immediately when I got home yesterday was M is for Monsters, because it is a Frankenstein retelling and I really love Frankenstein. And I was like, you know what? I need something to break up my reading and this would be perfect. Our main character, Frances, who goes by Frankie, her little sister Mara ended up dying in a experiment gone wrong, and 6 months later Frankie has resurrected her sister, kind of like Frankenstein, but her sister, who wants to go by M instead of Mara, doesn't remember anything about her past. So Frankie tries to force M to live life like Mara would have lived life, hoping that it will trigger some memories for her, but it's not working, and it's causing a bit of strife between the two. And Frankie is determined that if she doesn't get her memories back, then she could just take M apart and put her back together again, which is just unhinged behavior. I got like halfway last night, and so I think I'm gonna finish it today after the live show, since it's really not long at all. I also think I'm gonna change my TBR around, which who's surprised? No one's surprised. I'm just having a time. I'm having a time, and I really need something that falls in the Summerween vibes but is a little bit cozy. So I thought, what would be more perfect than like a cozy mystery? And so I think I'm gonna start Vera Wong's Unsolicited Advice for Murderers, because I've been wanting to read this. I just haven't gotten around to it because I was saving it for another video concept that I just don't think is gonna end up happening after all. I think I'm gonna read that. I think I need something that's more of like a cozy, silly vibe, because the last couple of books that I've read have been a little more intense, and I just need something fun. So I think a cozy mystery is the answer. I'm gonna be starting that later tonight because I want to finish M is for Monsters first, and then I'll probably start Vera Wong like right before bed, because I always read before bed. Also, I am at this point like 30% into I Was a Teenage Slasher by Stephen Graham Jones, and I'm really liking this. I'm really vibing with it, but it is very dark. Because when I was explaining it before, I don't think I had read the synopsis yet, because one thing about me, I'm not gonna read a synopsis. I will listen to you pitch me that synopsis in a YouTube video, but I'm not gonna go read one because they give away too much. It always gives away too much. That being said, I did go and end up reading the synopsis because I was just curious about where this book is going, and also what the narrative structure was gonna be like with our main character, because so far it's like he's writing a letter, and I was like, oh, that's really interesting. Is he writing a letter, or is this like an autobiography type of book? And it is. It's supposed to be an autobiography about our main character and the time that he killed a bunch of people. So the chapters are very long. I actually don't know if the book itself has chapters, and I don't really know that there are that many natural breaks in this book, because the times that I've had to pause the book so that I could stop listening and do other things, it's never been a fully natural break in the book. So I'm not actually sure if there are full-on chapters in here, or if there are just like dates of things, or what the actual structure of the book looks like. The audiobook, it just seems as if there aren't any chapters. So finding a natural breaking point has been a little bit hard and a little bit awkward, but I'm at a point where we're starting to understand and things are starting to come together about why our character made the choice that he did and why he needed to get revenge on people. Although the scene and how it played out ultimately, I'm curious like who his victims are, because I thought they were going to be a certain group of people, and I don't think that that's the case. Again, it's just a little bit dark for me today, so I'll probably get back into it tomorrow and finish it tomorrow. But I just need to give my brain a little bit of a break, but I'm enjoying it. I really am. So I slept on my hair wet last night. I didn't mean to. I just fell asleep. I was really tired. What is this? What? Oh.
You're running away. Said you're sick of the city and due for a change, but I need you to stay. Just as long as it takes me to memorize your face, I'll draw it all day. till your eyebrows point to your jawbone in just the right way.
Hello, happy Monday. It's pretty late in the day for me to be updating. It's like 7 o'clock or something right now. I pretty much worked all day, and then by the time I got home I had some sprints for the tarot readathon, which if you are not participating in the tarot readathon as well, I can link that down below. Also, I'm one of the hosts for it, and I've been having a fun time like doing both Summerween and the tarot readathon. Work was extremely busy, so I'm just gonna update you all in one go because I have finished 2 things, and this is also gonna be the end of the first installment of my vlog. So hopefully you will be seeing this tomorrow if I can get it edited tonight. So the first thing I finished was M is for Monsters, and this is the Frankenstein retelling, but it's definitely much more like wholesome than a normal Frankenstein retelling. Basically, it's about identity and kind of finding your family and finding yourself and kind of defying expectations of your family, and like also your family realizing that they can't put these types of expectations on you. So this was really sweet. It was a very quick read, and I liked the art style a lot. I really like it. I actually really love this simplistic art of it being only one color palette. This is something that Tilly Walden does a lot, and I really love that. And so I really appreciated this choice. I think it just really went with the story concept itself, and this just ended up being really sweet and wholesome. It was like a perfect palette cleanser because I was getting a little bit of anxiety from all of the horror and thrillers like back to back to back. I don't really have a rating for this, but I really enjoyed it, and I think you should pick it up if you like Frankenstein retellings. But this is definitely less on the horror side and more like on that wholesome YA graphic novel side that I end up loving in graphic novels, and why I keep picking these YA ones up. And then my camera's about to die, so let me change the battery and talk to you about I Was the Teenage Slasher. So yeah, I officially finished I Was the Teenage Slasher by Stephen Graham Jones. I think I'm giving this like a 3.5 stars. I really wanted to love this more than I ended up loving it, but a huge part of why this didn't fully hit the mark for me is simply because I don't know anything about slashers. I don't know anything about final girl references. I don't really know much about the movies and the tropes that were being referenced in here. And not that that's gonna take away all of the enjoyment of this book, because I still think there was a lot that I really loved about this. Like the setup was really great. I actually liked the narrative structure of this being like an autobiography, but also like a letter to his best friend Amber. But as we got closer to the end and got more of the explanation of kind of what was happening, it lost me a bit because I don't know those tropes and I don't know those references. So a lot of this just went over my head, and I feel like if you have a good knowledge of these things that are being referenced and like the movies that are being emulated here, then this is probably going to be really, really fun, and I could see people having a lot of fun with this. But so much of it went over my head simply because my lack of understanding these things that I just couldn't give it anything higher than a 3.5 stars. But I was really in it. I was in it. Like I was enjoying the narrative. I really enjoyed the audiobook actually. I'm actually really excited because a lot of people do have this on their TBR for Summerween, so I'm hoping to see some more reviews as Summerween comes to a close. But it definitely makes me want to go watch like one of those slasher movies. I've said it before though, I just really struggle with horror movies. Like the visuals really get me, whereas when I'm reading horror, I feel like I can put blinders on in some cases, because even when I'm watching like The Fall of House Usher, I'm still closing my eyes at a lot of different scenes. Which, speaking of, I don't know if I even said this, we finished The Fall of House Usher and I ended up really enjoying it. I wasn't loving some of the episodes toward the middle, like more beginning middle, but the last 3 episodes really did something for me. I feel like the thing with Flanagan is he's gonna do a lot of amazing things, but also a lot of cheesy things and a lot of cheesy visuals, and somehow it always works for me. But anyway, friends, that was the first 4 days of Summerween. Let me know how you're doing in Summerween, what you're reading, how you're feeling. Is the momentum still there? And I will hopefully be talking to you in another vlog closing out the last couple of days of Summerween. I still have some momentum, so I'm hoping that I can get a few more things read. But otherwise, I will talk to y'all later. Bye.